Well, this Sunday night, I will be waiting all day for Sunday Night Football. Thank you very much, Carrie Underwood. As this is the matchup that everybody in the NFL wanted last year as the NFC Championship game, though it would have had to take place in Detroit between the Lions and the Eagles. We didn't get it because Jared Goff ended up crapping the bed against the Commanders in the divisional round, and the defense gave up, 45 points. And Dan Campbell now, in my opinion, weirdly and strangely and not very Dan Campbell-like, has all of a sudden taken over play calling for the Lions. Now, they did score on every single drive against the Commanders, but maybe the Commanders' defense just quit. This is going to be two bulls going at each other Sunday night, and I want to see how Jared Goff, in particular, handles the cold weather when he's got a pass rush right in his face.
So, you know what's interesting is on the Eagles' way to the Super Bowl, yes, they beat the Chiefs. Yes, they beat the Commanders. But for me, their real Super Bowl was the divisional round game against the Rams. And the reason I mention that is because we never really got to see what the Lions' Super Bowl game was, in my opinion, last season. For me, and why do I mention that? Well, it's because I think this is the Lions' Super Bowl game in the regular season. Does all that make sense?
I can make a case of Super Bowl game last year was maybe Minnesota week 18 to get to the 15 wins, to get to that number one seed.
Okay, that's fair. But do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Oh, for sure. I think the Lions think that they would have beat the Eagles last year in the NFC Championship game, and I'm on record. Sorry to friend of the show, Jalen Sandvik, but I'm on record that would not have happened. And I think it's going to be a very close, very tight, very physical when they want to scrimmage. My Eagles defensive line, if they played like that, the way they did against Green Bay, that's how we're going to beat the Lions.
It's going to be really interesting to see the chess match between Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni. By the way, I looked it up. Lions offensive coordinator is John Morton. Remember after week 1, we were like, who is this Lions team? That was unrecognizable.
And they got worked by Green Bay, and I'm here to tell you the same thing could happen Sunday night.
And yet, after that Green Bay game, we were praising John Morton, especially after that Chicago game where they put up 50.
Well, I said that was a bounce back game for that. I think the game that woke everybody up was the Ravens game.
That part is true, yes. And yet, as you mentioned, Dan Campbell took over play calling this past week against the Commanders. So I'm going to ask you this question. Do you think that says more about Dan Campbell, or does it say less about John Morton?
Oh, I think it says way less about John Morton. Do you think Dan Campbell ever once thought about taking over play calling from Ben Johnson?
Heck no.
There you go. There's your answer.
Fair enough. And do you think Sirianni will eventually take over play calling from Kevin Patullo?
No, I don't, because he learned his lesson. Remember with the Brian Johnson situation where it was back and forth? Is this Sirianni's offense? Is it Brian Johnson's offense? It almost cost them his job. Remember Sirianni made the in-season decision to move off Sean Desai and then move Matt Patricia up, and that turned out to be an absolute abject, complete disaster of a football team.
Yes, because you lost to Drew Lock in Seattle.
Yeah, that was still one of the worst football memories of my entire life.
You're welcome.
But so no, I don't think Nick will do that, and I don't necessarily think Kevin Patullo is the best play caller in the world. I don't think he's no Kellen Moore, but I think there's guys way worse than him. Mainly a guy in Cleveland known as Kevin Stefanski, and a guy in Cleveland known as Tommy Rees. I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. And so I don't think Kevin Patullo is the worst guy in the world. There are some games where I think he's got a good feel for it. And for whatever reason, this Eagles team seems to be like they play better at home this year than on the road. I think they will be up for this game. And I think it's going to come down to which quarterback makes a bigger play, Jalen Hurts or Jared Goff.
In my opinion, Philly's best game of the season was when they went on the road and beat the Vikings. I thought that was their most complete game of the season. I know others would argue that their more complete game was when they hosted the Giants. But to me, when I look back at that Vikings game, that looked more like the Eagles we've come to know over the past.
That was the game that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both went crazy. The defense played better in the Giants game. And again, I think the defense has played well. I think it's going to come down to can they get pressure on Jared Goff, because we know what Jared Goff turns into if you can get pressure on him. These are the two best offensive lines in football. I think the Eagles' offensive line, I got scared last night when Lane Johnson went down. I thought his season was over. And then he ends up coming back into the game. The thing for this Eagles team is going to be, can they get Cam Jurgens back at center? Because he still wasn't back off the bye. That, to me, is the most concerning part of the offense.
For me, this game comes down to Sonic and Knuckles against Saquon Barkley. I think that's the matchup that will decide this game. I'd like to see the Eagles use other running backs, not be so Saquon dependent, not trying to take anything away from Saquon.
Well, they're starting to use Bigsby and Will Shipley. I know they want to take some of the load off Saquon, so you're not wrong there.
Right. But you know Detroit has a very well-established dynamic duo in Sonic and Knuckles, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And again, we know Philadelphia is primarily going to use Saquon. You know, he's coming off of nearly breaking the rushing record. Many people thought he should have won MVP. Of course, people are saying the same thing about Jonathan Taylor now, for whatever it's worth. But that's a different discussion for another day. But either way, for me, it really comes down to whose running game will be established quicker. Because if Detroit is able to go in and on that first drive, just run it right down Philadelphia's throat. Granted, I get that the Eagles can make changes defensively, but if the Lions
I 100% agree with you.
Okay. Like, do I think Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta are going to play a factor for Detroit? Yes. Do I think A.J. Brown, Devontae, and Dallas Goedert are going to make an impact for Philadelphia? I think so. I don't know. Because the Eagles' passing game is just so bizarre. So, yes, I would agree with you. The Eagles have problems on the offense. I had Jalen Hurts, Devontae, and A.J. Brown on fantasy last night. I just barely won my game. Even though Jalen was projected to get me like 20 plus points or something.
We have fixable problems on offense.
Fair enough.
Put it that way. All right. Well, we talked about a lot of these games. So I think our top games of the week this week, I think this may be the quickest segment we've ever done because we've gone over a lot of these games. I am winning more creative and very political, improving offensive. So the last point I disagree with. I've told you this before. I like the fact that Jalen's not running a lot more. The offensive line execution, I think, will come with the addition of Cam Jurgens being back, and I agree. I think that mixing up the personnel would be better.